Morning, guys. Vinnie Mirchandani. Real pleasure to have Tom Brennan and Dave Stephans from Rootstock. Rootstock is an ERP vendor built on the Salesforce Force.com platform. I'll let them introduce themselves and the company. Tom, David, welcome.
Well, thanks for having us, Vinny. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like your
Would you like to hear a little bit about Rootstock first, or how we'd like to start?
Well, tell us about your beard first, and then.
Well, I think, you inspired this. For those of you who may know that Vinny inspired me to write an article about tuna fishing, and I started off with an Ernest Hemingway piece, and so I've been working hard now to get that look. We'll see how long it's going to last, but you got to do something fun in this quarantine time. I know you're always looking on the bright side of things, so this is my shot at doing that.
Absolutely. But Tom, tell us a little bit about your background, and then also
Sure.
Tell us about Rootstock and about.
Yeah. So I'm the chief marketing officer for Rootstock. Been in the ERP space, mostly in the financial side, since the late '80s. Actually, companies like Coda, from some of the users who know from the way back days. Was very involved in the Great Plains world during the late '90s and early 2000s. Before Rootstock, I was at Financial Force, where I ran marketing there for about 7 years as well. So I've been around ERP for quite a long time.
Great. David, do you want to say something?
Sure. My name is David Stephans, Chief Revenue Officer for Rootstock. I have ownership of all the customer-facing areas within Rootstock. I've been Rootstock for approaching 7 years now, and I've been in the ERP space like Tom since the late '80s as well, and been with companies like Bond and also focused in supply chain, companies like i2 Technologies, which is now part of JDA. I did exit the ERP space and moved to the other side for about 6 years. I ran an aerospace and defense contract manufacturer, where obviously a lot of what I learned in technology before that, as well as what I learned in industry, applying now to the technology space, was valuable to kind of play, the industry side of it as well. Happy to be here.
Well, thank you for joining me. And David, you're a fellow Floridian.
I am. Yes.
Not too far from here in Orlando.
Yeah, that's correct.
And Tom, you are up in Hemingway country in Florida, correct?
Today I'm in New Hampshire, still wearing a sweater, so that shows you. But it's actually because the air conditioning's on pretty hard today, actually.
Hey, so guys, we've been seeing some amazing acrobatics in different industries in the last 3 months, right? Healthcare heroics, auto companies jumping in to make medical ventilators, 3M quadrupling their N95 mass capacity, last mile logistics, all kinds of banking, emergency loans, and so on. What kind of acrobatic? I call them acrobatics because, frankly, there's no script for that, and they're doing some stuff that is just amazing. What kind of heroics and acrobatics have you seen in your customer base? I'm sure you've had a few that have just made you go, wow.
Yeah, we were, I was actually really proud. One of the first companies to jump in very early was a company called Matook out of Fall River. And they're in the kind of the, I guess, customs linens business, if you will, is what they do. Very high-end products. And they shifted over immediately and started making masks for hospitals in Rhode Island. And Rhode Island was sort of a flashpoint there earlier on. They were also doing a lot of donations of sheets to the local hospitals and things as well. So I was really proud of them as a company, let alone what they did to shift over production and everything to do that as well. Another company similar to that actually really advanced the level of production of what they've done is a company called Unionware out of New Jersey. Unionware makes things like baseball hats, portfolios, things you customize for your company. You can design logos and things. They have lots of different products that they do. And one of the things they were doing is they were making the hats for the Olympics. They were making the hats for all the Democratic primary, for the census and things like that. And overnight, all that just shut down on them. And so they were set there with, there are all these big contracts that they have that were just off and done. And so Mitch Kahn, as the CEO there, is a very astute guy and guy with a great conscience as well. he contacted through their union, so their union shop, their union is also involved with the hospital association. They were telling him about the PPE problem, and so he went back and he just started designing headbands with the visors, and he instantly started doing that, and then also making gowns as well. And so he turned as much of his shop over, despite physical limitation issues, to doing that. And so now he's up to about 15,000 visors a day, and he's about 1,250 gowns a day. So complete change. You're taking different product line. He said within like about, I think it was March 24th, he went in and gave him a prototype. They gave him an order, and then he was immediately starting in production on the thing. So really interesting to see what companies are doing to pull together around COVID-19.
And obviously your software was able to handle the assortment changes and so on fairly
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. The ERP has got to be really agile to make those changes quickly. Like if you ask, Mitch, he'd tell you they wouldn't be able to do it without Rootstock. And not to pat ourselves on the back, what he and his team are doing is a really important part. But having ERP to adjust to times, whether it's this or any business change, is really important. And he's able to do that with our products.
Talking about agile, most CIOs I've talked to say, given the blend of on-premise versus cloud applications, I mean, most of them are singing praises of, my God, my cloud applications were so easy to for people who are working from home to adapt to. What are you hearing from your customers? Similar praises or?
Yeah. Dave, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think we are hearing similar positions by our customers to basically say we are really glad we made a complete cloud shift, albeit we weren't expecting something like this, but it happened, and now we're able to leverage it with essentially a lot of the back office personnel, who are common users of the ERP systems, who aren't necessarily the direct factory workers, leveraging the systems from home and being able to coordinate and correlate. I know one of our customers, Pioneer Bearings, Tom, you commented on this. They made that exact assessment that was huge for us, because we were able to immediately flip and have our staff working from home and still coordinating and doing everything we could outside of physical production to organize the company and to be able to respond to this new dynamic.
Yeah, it's interesting in his case. He educated me as how much the physical workshop needed to change, as well as he sent a lot of people home. But they were putting automatic doors in, you could step on, you didn't have to touch, and then all the separation things. Once they got through that, and then having the cloud, I think his term was priceless, having cloud ERP to be able to get through it. And he did it during his peak season, his peak year, and he had one of his best margin profit margin months of the year, and actually did great in his on-time delivery. So they're very thankful. I think they made the move to cloud ERP.
I think the other thing that's interesting there too is during implementations, obviously we have a number of customers that are doing active implementations, and they're facing the same types of challenges. And the fact that we're a completely cloud-based solution gives them the ability to really continue their implementation process with their staff at home, working safely, still coordinating and moving through a process with full unanimity and no issues in that process. So while we may have seen a few weeks of shock, as was the case across pretty much everybody from a personal and professional perspective in the March timeline, those things have now regrouped, and customers are able to, complete their implementations, as well as, the implemented live customers leveraging the solution.
Yeah, as a road warrior, I've noticed that I haven't flown.
You and me both. You and me both.
So guys, you are in one of the most interesting industries there is, the medical marijuana CBD market. It seems like every state is going to be stretched revenue-wise, right? Taxes-wise. I'm hearing that we may see more and more states legalize that. Are you hearing similar, and what's that going to mean for your business?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the trend. In fact, I was reading, I think medical or marijuana sales have been up recently. Maybe it's all this home quarantine. People don't know what to do. I don't know, but apparently, like liquor sales are up. Apparently, marijuana sales are up as well. But even before this, that was happening, and companies were kind of popping up in these states as it became legal. And the states that have been doing it for longer, companies are more mature and they're growing, and it was sort of a sorting out happening of the ones who are probably going to make it and the ones who are not. And you got companies like Africa as a customer of ours up in Canada. They're just booming. Their growth rate's unbelievable, and they're in 10 countries around the world. So it's not a little business anymore.
And so that should be, it's a vertical you're doing pretty well in.
Yes. Yeah, we are. Yeah.
One other trend we're hearing, and it may be more political, but there's a lot of talk about how the supply chains were disrupted from Asia. So there's a lot of talk about people moving manufacturing back to the US. Are you hearing that? And is that going to be good for your business?
Dave, you want to comment on that? Or
Sure. I think, interestingly enough, in some situations like textile manufacturing, Tom gave 2 examples with Matuk and with Unionware, where they had found niches in US manufactured textile products. In the case of Matuk, the high-end linens, and in the case of Unionware, the hats and bags and things like that. Obviously, they already had established supply chains. They were primarily domestic, and they were able to respond very rapidly in this shift because they were already essentially domestic. I think what we're hearing for, if you're dealing with a product inventor or a company who outsources their manufacturing, they're still a classic manufacturing company, but outsource most of the core of their manufacturing to other parts of the world. You are hearing, the impacts of this start those conversations as to, how do we make this shift back? How do we at least prepare ourselves so that if we're ever in this situation again, we can respond, because many of those companies are struggling, to respond given the lack of supply and the challenges with the supply chain coming from Asia and other areas of the world. So I think what we're being asked of as ERP vendors is to really ensure that we can support them in that model. And because of the depth and breadth of capability, they'd be using us today, maybe doing all their engineering and order management and fulfillment management and sourcing, but maybe not running their factories. But knowing that Rootstock can step in, as we have with many of our other core manufacturing customers, and just have them add those capabilities of our ERP system to enable them to manufacture, beyond the design and outsourcing and accounting and other functions that they'd be doing. That's what we've been able to, step up and assure our customers that we can provide them those capabilities as they manage those sea changes in their business.
Yes, certainly. I think there's an opportunity for some to reshore under this whole guise of diversifying the supply chain as well. I was talking to our director of Asia Pac last week, and he was mentioning that he's getting a lot of inquiries and seeing a lot of action. Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, people that are trying to, consider some other source other than China. So I think we'll start seeing more of that happen as well.
So you guys are obviously a big Salesforce partner. I interviewed Niraj, who is their verticals lead, and she mentioned work.com. It's a Salesforce product that, I guess is aimed at helping companies reopen physical sites in a more organized fashion, right? Everybody's looking at reopening, every state is looking at reopening, but every company has to do their own due diligence. Are you guys involved in the work.com initiative? What else are you doing with Salesforce as they look at different initiatives?
Yeah, certainly our applications fit into that construct of reopening and work.com. And as we were saying earlier in the conversation to kind of kick this off, we're seeing a lot of prospective interest being generated by the fact that we are true cloud, and companies are now understanding the impact to their business, both in terms of the positive impact to be able to deal with situations like COVID-19 with these types of solutions, and companies that maybe weren't there yet in terms of true cloud and realizing the challenges that presents to their business. And that cloud for us, as you've mentioned, is Salesforce, given that we're built inside the Salesforce ecosystem. So, we are working with Salesforce on a number of different fronts. As you mentioned, Salesforce has the work.com initiative. They also have a broader COVID-19 initiative that started right when all this kicked off. And there were 2 specific instances that we were brought into in concert. One of them, which we were introduced to through some relationships we have in the Salesforce ecosystem world, where both the state of California and the state of New York back in March were panicking over PPE. And so they were looking for ways to create coordinated supply chain initiatives with both supply chain management capabilities like Rootstock brings to the table, as well as PLM capabilities, because companies like Matuk and Unionware and others were looking to convert from other traditional manufacturing or what they did today to PPE immediately and as quickly as possible. And in order to do that in many of these either medical or med device related product spaces, you've got to shift and you've got to put in compliance capabilities. You've got to be able to take, best practices around engineering and deploy those. And so we partnered with a company called Propel, which is it's a PLM PDM system built inside Salesforce as well, combined with our supply chain capabilities, and responded to those needs to offer a quick solution offering on the platform free of charge, because Salesforce was offering their capabilities to anybody related in finding, solutions and promoting PPE and other medical related solutions. So that was one. And another exciting opportunity that came out of this in terms of leveraging the capability and providing some good in all of this trouble that we faced with COVID-19 was a company called MVM.care. And they have created a publicly available IP ventilator. And so this was a design group out of Italy that had expertise in the space, and they were already on a path to launch this product. But when COVID-19 hit so hard early in the year, in Italy in particular, they were one of the earliest countries to really face a significant challenge. They accelerated their development, and they were able to produce a product that could be sourced within the supply chain very quickly, built more simply than current models in the marketplace, and delivered at a very effective cost point. They made their IP and their designs publicly available so that any manufacturer could go do this. The challenge was there was a global sourcing that was required in order to meet the component demands of doing this. There was connectivity from all of the different potential manufacturers, subcontractors, component suppliers, distribution networks, et cetera. And so Salesforce and Rootstock came together. Salesforce offered up their platform capabilities to connect users in an open communication systems, and Rootstock with their supply chain capabilities, and also our customer base, where many of them, could have been component suppliers to the cause. And that created a community in a single cloud-based global technology platform that everybody in that instance could work within. And it involved the government, FDA. They were issued about a month ago an EUA, which is basically an expedited emergency use authorization to go ahead and build and deploy these ventilators. And that was done on the construct of all these companies having to come together and move and respond very rapidly.
Neat. And if it's open source, it should be a lot cheaper and should allow
exactly.
a lot more component suppliers to be part of it. That's neat.
Yeah.
I'm asking everybody, what do you see about the economy? Do you see a V recovery? There's some people who are increasingly getting probably carried away, but they're very optimistic we'll see a sharp rebound. Certainly the president is hoping for that. Or do you see a U recovery, gradual, a long V, if you will, or do you see a W, up and down, because there'll be flare-ups, there may be different regions are opening up at different paces, or do you see an L, it's going to be dead for a while. Where do you fall?
Does the Rootstock economist want to handle that one first?
I think
surprised the marketing guy didn't jump on that.
I've got revenue in the title line.
Yeah, marketing economist, same thing.
So I think from a Rootstock perspective, Tom and I talked a little bit about this, and it's a great question, first of all. And I think if we categorize it today based on what we're seeing, we would say it's a U. And I think the characteristics of that U, the bottom of the U being how long will this last before we get into the mode of the kickback. And in our estimation right now, our internal kind of guideline was, let's look at this as a 90-day window. If you talk about looking at the middle of Q2 and the middle of Q3, if you look on calendar quarters, kind of setting the expectation that, hey, we should expect that we're at least going to see a 90-day window of, all aspects of delay, of adjustment, of people trying to get used to this new way in so many ways from a commercial and professional perspective. So that's our assessment at this point. I think we are completely open and wide open-minded about the fact it could become a W, as you mentioned, depending on what these reopenings generate and what kind of potential reoccurrence takes place, additional lockdowns take place, we move back into slowing the recovery, slowing reopenings. That could make this more of a W, but we don't see that yet. And so we're hesitant to kind of expect that. And so we're taking a cautious and careful view of the U approach, I think.
You know, what I'd add is what's interesting is the role of government stimulus and the packages in this. I think we're not feeling a lot of the bottom of the U, maybe like we would. And Wall Street certainly isn't reflecting that, but I don't know if that's a good indicator necessarily. But I have friends who own small businesses, and what they're finding is a lot of people on the lower end of the wage scale in particular don't want to go back to work because they're making more on unemployment than they are working. And I'm sure that's going to hit our customers as well. We've got factory jobs and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with what the federal government does over the next few weeks here in regard to that as well. But hopefully that, in an odd way, it's slowing people down from going back to work.
You know, there's so many conflicting trends. AutoNation reflected a pretty good quarter, and you go, used cars? Well, people are buying used cars because they don't, hygiene reasons, right? So they don't want to use Uber because they can't trust safety.
Right.
And you know, I was talking to somebody in the auto industry, and he said, I'm expecting a V. He says, you know, with gas prices the way they are, our models certainly show a V even for new cars. So there's all kinds of conflicting data points, and you know, we can all be optimistic and hope it's maybe not a sharp V, maybe a lazy V, as somebody called it, or a sharp U. So
I'm actually glad manufacturers certainly been hit. Some are doing actually great. Some are obviously hit, but I'm glad I'm not serving the food business or the hoteling business. You know, that business, which has really been devastated, will be probably for a while. But what's it going to be like when all that damage happens to the rest of the economy, right?
Tom, I interviewed a person who's in the hospitality business, and he told me local within state hotel reservations picking up nicely. So another counterpoint, I interviewed the CIO of Delta, and he told me they were still running 1,000 flights a day. A lot of them are, you know, medical supplies, cargo, and so on.
Right.
There's a lot of conflicting trends that you don't necessarily hear. I mean, you know, you listen to media, sometimes it all looks like doom and gloom. You just look at the unemployment figures and you go, my God, it's going to take so long to get out of this hole. There's a lot of conflicting data. So,
yeah, there is.
Guys, any final thoughts for your colleagues in the business, for your customers, for fellow analysts?
No, we just got to get through this and back to business as usual to some extent. I don't know if it'll be usual ever again.
True.
More usual, maybe. We're looking forward to that.
Well, guys, stay healthy, and thank you again.
Thanks for having me.